Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael. We're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today's very special guest is Flint Jamison. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey guys, I'm really excited to be here. This has actually probably been a long time coming because we're both huge travelers and we could probably share a lot of stories about that. But we're here for real estate.
But real estate allows us to travel. So it works hand in hand.
Yes.
It really does. And we're so excited you're here too, because it has been a long time coming. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Flint, I'd love for you to share with our adventurous family a little bit more about your background and why you started investing in real estate.
Yeah. So I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I got into aerospace industry. The fun facts there is I helped design the wing of the 787 Dreamliner for
Okay.
like 8 years. Flash forward a few more years, then I became a program manager and I helped modify aircraft for the Air Force. This is like taking standard biz jets or commercial jets and doing cool things to them and sending them off to the
Yeah.
Air Force. But as probably most of your guests have said, they're kind of tired of the rat race. It's a grind, working hard, working longer and longer hours, got some young kids. I needed a way out sooner and I didn't want to work till I was 65. So I bought a duplex in 2018. I bird it. It was pseudo successful. There's a really fun story behind that. We don't have to go there if we don't want to. But then I found out about syndications after I did the burr. And from there, I never looked back. And that was probably 2019, 2020. I started passively investing and then became active. And so now I've done single value ads. I've done fund to funds, portfolio properties. Now I'm doing built to rent.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. And I have a lot of questions to you.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to start with the burr.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm
Fun
going to think
stories,
about
yeah.
that for the entire time.
Yeah. So the bird, I got in with a hard money loan and it was supposed to take 3 months, took 6 months, which is super painful. And then it cost twice as much to do the rehab because a bunch of, things creep up on you. Anyway, so once that was done, cool. I wrote it out for 3 years and through COVID with a single tenant. That tenant, this is the fun part of the story. She moved into the upper unit and her elderly aunts moved into the lower unit. And she was essentially the caretaker. Flash forward 3 years through COVID, I was getting paid. I think that there was some government assistance on the background, but the property manager was handling it and I was cool with it. She stopped paying in January of 22. So then we start digging more. What's going on? We started helping her with the government assistance paperwork and the property manager walks through there. Come to find out she has elderly uncles in the lower units. My property manager definitely failed me because at this time I was like, you know what? I just don't want to drop this. I'm doing syndications. I don't want to deal with the hassle of a duplex. My realtor shows up at the house with very little notice and finds a sign on the front doorstep that's basically a geriatric Alzheimer's care facility they run
Oh,
out of my duplex.
wow. Wow.
Yes.
I didn't
Yeah.
expect that. That is a fun. Wow. Okay.
Here's the biggest kicker. Well, so for one, all of a sudden, my realized risk exposure skyrocketed because she's running a commercial operation, which is questionably licensed appropriately. She has, for each unit is the same, but it's 3 beds, 1 bath per unit. She had 2 beds per bedroom. So 6 potential tenants,
Wow.
geriatric Alzheimer's tenants. And according to the website that I found, she was charging $3,500 per bed. I was charging her a total. So this is like in a Class C neighborhood in Milwaukee. I was charging her a total of $1,700 a month, and she's making $3,500. And she, for some reason, just can't make rent.
Oh my.
So I told my realtor, press forward. Let's just get this off. The risk exposure is too high. She found another investor to come in and buy it. He was totally aware. We were transparent what's going on. Her lease was ending in a few months anyway. So everything was successful. I got out. I made money on the property. Cool. A week later, my real estate agent reaches back out and sends me a text. I wish I had it pulled up now. But she's basically said, my tenant stopped paying her caretakers because she had caretakers, hired caretakers. She stopped paying them. And eventually they showed back up once she found out, there was a whole bunch of lies. Somehow what I did triggering the sale of this property opened up a whole can of worms. And now the caretakers showed up at the house marching around with guns outside demanding to be paid and she was locked inside. I don't know where the patients were at this point, but I'm just like, I am so glad I got out. And that,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm so glad I asked. This is
That
a
is
good
wild.
story. I mean, seriously.
That's why you love real estate.
yeah,
Right.
anything can happen. And I made money on it. So there we go.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Okay.
cool. All right. So,
Transitioning.
cool story.
There is something to add to that, or just to say on that, right? So with the duplex, like, yes, it is 2 doors. Yes, like you can scale with bigger stuff, but like and I
2 doors, 12 beds.
well, you do that. It's funny.
Yeah.
And I only say this from like a love of multifamily because that's all I invest in and that's all I know, right? But like our property manager does preventative maintenance quarterly. And there is a reason for this because you are not supposed to, and I'm 99.9% sure our leases say you cannot operate, a business
Yep.
out of a
Definitely
room.
say that.
So like just no matter what you're investing in, please make sure your property manager is doing preventative maintenance often. That's how
She
not.
she definitely breached the contract. And the second thing was we did have maintenance going on. But they would give her so much notice that she was able to hide things enough to where the repairman would just show up and he didn't care. Like he's fixing some valve in the bathtub or something.
If
He
not,
just
Yeah.
didn't
the
care.
business needs. Yeah.
So my biggest lesson learned here is I have to personally go out there and see it myself because I can't. One, I shouldn't have trusted my property manager that much. Trust but verify.
Gotcha.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Cool. So, yeah, that's really cool. That's a really cool lesson and story for our listeners. Another cool story I think we can kind of get out of here, Flint, is like, and I don't think we've talked about this too much on the podcast. I don't think we talked about it at all, to be honest. Like, think back, but like you said, you've kind of gone from like you found syndications, you started passively investing first, and now you moved onto the active side. So we haven't really talked about that transition on the podcast. Can you kind of give a high level overview of that whole transition, and then we can kind of get into the weeds.
Yeah. So to be honest, I was planning on being active the whole time,
Mhm.
but it felt prudent of me to invest first because I really wanted to see the communications of an
Mhm.
experienced operator. And that night I had money at that point to shovel over. I was using I created a solo 401k and pushed the money into actual 2 deals before I attempted my first. It's super healthy, I think, to do the passive side before you decide to jump active.
Yeah. Okay. So, like you said, you started investing passively just so you can understand like the whole communication piece and like how the operator is actually operating so you can learn from that. I think it's a great idea for sure. We've had we've had some investors who've done that. Like they said, yeah, we like to invest passively to learn the ropes, whatever. Some of them just continue to stay passive, and some have actually, gone on to be active as well. And I think it's a good way to kind of get a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think most potential investors, there's this fear of they'll have to go to our website and sign up for our investor club and they end up in our database and they get drip campaigns. I think there's an initial fear of just going onto the website and signing up. But
Yeah.
what I try to convince people is just do it. It's free. And two, when an opportunity comes across, you don't have to invest in it. And two, you get to see the entire deal deck, learn about everything that we talk about, our experience, the operator's experience, the market, the business plan, everything. There's so much to be learned from there. And you don't necessarily get that if you're just watching social media posts, hoping to learn some more, or picking up a book. You really need to just get in the investor club and actually see the communications.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And I even do that now, like being active.
Yes.
Like I
Oh
can
yeah.
look
Yeah.
at other people's deals and like, okay, what are people and that gives me a good pulse of the market too. Okay, what returns are people putting out, right? Like what is our
Yep.
competition? But like what are people kind of expecting, for returns, given the current environment, and like what are they keying in on? What are they answering about? Like what kind of facts are they giving out as well? FAQs and things like that. And then just kind of like where they're investing in what, you know,
Yeah. What markets?
utilize or kind of avoid. Like we've seen a transition now from like heavy value add because bridge debt is really expensive right now to more like stabilized assets. People are more interested in those these days just because it's, bank debt is hard. bridge loan is hard, but the only thing that's really good, solid right now is agency, and that seems to be closing without
Yep.
any hiccups, right now. So yeah, it just gives me a good pulse of on the market and on what is actually happening in the syndication space as well. So yeah, I recommend that to anybody who's interested in learning whether that they want to be passive or active.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even on the backside, after you're invested, you get the monthly and quarterly updates, and those are, and hopefully you're seeing some financials. There's just so much to learn from that.
Yeah, something else too that I like, and I know, I mean, you kind of hit on it a little bit, right? But like we can look at deals and like performa and everything. But I think a bigger part too, like that I love is like you get to really see like what the state of the economy is, like in regards to real estate, because some operators like talk about that as well. And like that, for somebody who doesn't have a ton of time to become like a real estate professional and an economist and all of the other things in between, right? Like you can actually get a lot more information rather than just like this is the deal, these are the projected returns,
Hmm.
investment.
Yes, we do have to wear so many hats.
So once you went active, like what do you do now? Like as for for the
Yeah.
side of things, so what's your role?
And I do multiple things, but my primary role became a capital raiser, mostly because it was the easiest thing to do remotely working nights and weekends while I had my day job.
Mhm.
I never expected myself as an engineer to even fall into that. Thought I'd just do some underwriting, but well, another story. So after my first syndication, my first attempt at syndication, it failed. I actually lost money on earnest money, due
Mm.
diligence. We had to back out of it before closing. And one of the major reasons was we didn't raise capital. So I'm like, I need to double down on my failure. So I went and got coaching and all that. And then here I am. No, I'm a capital raiser. But I do some asset management on the backside and a lot of the initial, I'd say the investor relation stuff like pitch deck and things like that I help out with. But the cool thing is as a capital raiser, I now have found myself that I get to partner with very experienced operators to bring my friends, family, and investors a diverse portfolio. Like I hope to this year bring self storage, as long as the returns are looking good with the current economy. But yeah, self storage, doing new development, built to rent, and then value adds. So it's pretty fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's the best part when you get to bring in, friends and family and everybody else in between, because like that really is the biggest part in real estate in general, right? Is being able to share all the knowledge that you have with others who don't have as much time to educate themselves fully, right? I mean, and then like to be able to get more time back with whomever they want that time with, or monetary value, whatever the reasoning is, like that's huge.
Yeah. Let's hit on that a little bit more. So for passive investors, once again, I said like just sign up on the website, get in the investor club and start learning. I also see a lot of hesitation. It's like people just, I think there's a huge excuse of I just don't have time. I just don't have time. Well, this doesn't necessarily have to take you that much time to educate yourself on how to be a passive investor. You can pick up one book, The Hands Off Investor by Brian Burke. Pick that up. You're going to learn a majority of what we do. And then you start finding operators and then you're going to get there fairly quickly.
Absolutely. And if I mean, most people's websites that you're talking about going to, like you hop on a call, maybe that
Yeah.
call is 30 minutes. And and I think a lot of people who don't know where to begin from passive investing, like, well, it might take a long time to there's so much education I need. Well, getting on a call with somebody to talk about like what syndication is, they can point you in the right direction of some really great resources. And then you don't have to you start from scratch, right? You're starting from
Oh, absolutely.
a point of education at that, so they can help you
Yeah.
guide you in the right direction and answer your questions as well. You maybe just a chat with them will be enough for your education, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. The tailored educational experience, because everybody learns differently. They don't necessarily want to pick up a book, but maybe a podcast is the thing. I mean, that's how I learned. So I listen to podcasts walking my dog every night.
I love that.
I
And
just
then I hired coaches.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and everybody does it at their own pace, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
So then what made you want to venture into build to rent? Because that's something I am unfamiliar with.
Should we go into the basics of what built to rent is
Yeah,
first?
Yeah.
let's do it.
Okay. I have a friend who was just talking about built to rent and now he's a partner, but it intrigued me because it's different than the value add apartment space. And what I've come to learn is it's got a massive demand. So build to rent is essentially buying a community or building a community of homes. So call it 150 homes. We just buy a raw piece of land and we build 150 homes on it, but we manage it as if it's like an apartment complex, only your tenants get their own individual house. So there's property management, there's on-site maintenance, and you have all the amenities of a really nice Class A plus apartment building, like pool, dog park, walking trails and such. But the coolest part about this is, well, it's a bit of a catch-22 that the housing prices have gone so high that, as we all know in the economy, a lot of people are struggling to buy a new house, especially younger millennials.
Hmm.
But their millennials are in their peak family forming years and they want to get out of apartments. So there's a great compromise where they can go rent a brand new house. We call it, it's like a starter house size, 2 bed, 3 bed. And the monthly cost of rent is still lower than what it would be if they had to go buy a house. And they're getting into this community, which is professionally managed. So they don't have to worry about the lawn. They don't have to worry about maintenance. So it's kind of it's a really great compromise for tenants. From an investor standpoint, the institutional investors like BlackRock or Blackstone, they come in, they just want to buy these assets because they're so hot. So there's billions of dollars of bank and institutional money getting thrown at these, but they are at the builders. So we step in as the builders.
Gotcha. I love that. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like you build these communities and then is the exit plan to package the community up and sell it to these big
Yeah,
institutions?
it's viewed as a commercial property. It's just one property you sell.
Gotcha.
So here's the best part is that is primary exit plan number one, right? Is sell it as a commercial asset.
Building of all of them is complete, right? Because there's different phases.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
what-
yeah. Okay. So here's the other fun part. Okay, I'll start with the exit strategies. If the economy were to do something crazy, we have single family homes. So we could either turn them around, I guess option B or the next best option would be to sell them off as like, hey, here's 5 homes to some, single family investor. Or I guess I would call it the worst case scenario. We team up with a local brokerage and sell them off as just homes buyers.
Yeah.
So there's multiple exit strategies. To your point, getting into it, there's actually multiple phases. We say there's 3 phases. Phase 1 is buying the land. Then you have to get it maybe zoned and entitled and engineering approved. Phase 2, you put in the roads, utilities, and sidewalks.
Horizontal.
Phase 3, yep. And then phase 3, you go vertical, call it, but you're building the houses. Each one of these phases has a different valuation. So buying a raw piece of land costs so much. And as soon as you put roads and sidewalks on it, it's now assessed at a much higher value. So now your equity skyrockets. And then you start putting homes on it and the equity skyrockets even more. But at each phase, we go get a new loan, a new construction loan, because it's now valued for more money.
Gotcha. And so I was just thinking too. So say you're in development I'm just thinking of another exit strategy, right? So say you built like 40 homes, so you have 40 left to build. Well, now that land is entitled where those 40 homes are going to be, and there's probably roads on it and things like that. Now, another exit strategy would be, hey, if you can't build on it, you can sell the land.
Yes.
How cool
Yeah.
is
That's actually a thing. There's land flippers out there who will buy a raw piece of land, get it zoned and entitled and get the engineering approved and then just sell it to a builder. And yes, we could absolutely exit. We could exit at the roads phase 2. What's interestingly enough, so there's another friend of mine who does build to rent properties. This is to give you an example of demand. They bought the land, they put all the money, like 18 months worth of engineering and entitlement effort to get this property ready to start cutting dirt.
Okay.
They were ready to cut dirt and they got 2 unsolicited offers.
small.
They couldn't turn it down. They ended up doubling their investor money in 18 months and they didn't even touch the dirt.
Oh.
So there's other examples of people being like 60% built and they get an unsolicited offer. Hey, we want that. And they contract the builder to finish it out.
That's cool. Yeah. Another question, I guess, is with the cost of goods and material, labor costs, things like that going up, what is your price per square foot right now to build?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no worries. But
I guess it would vary by location.
it varies by location.
Yeah. Talking about materials though, it's the wood and steel costs have come back down to that 2019 pre-COVID levels. The challenge is cost of diesel and fuel is higher, and the other risk is getting labor.
Yeah.
To build. So there's always risk somewhere, and those are the risks that we typically point out. But we are prepared. We have reserves in place to cover ourselves just in case materials go crazy on us or
Yeah.
labor is harder to get.
Yeah. I mean, and with that too, labor is usually harder to get everywhere all at the same time, right? Like we had
Yes.
that even just with our multifamily properties that were already built and had residents in them, like getting maintenance was a task.
Mhm. Well, I was just
Yeah. Was that permanent maintenance, like on-site maintenance, or just
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
both, yeah,
Both. All the
permanent
above.
and temporary. Like
GCs in? Yeah.
another question I have for you. You said during each phase, right? So buying the land, getting entitled, whatever, you get a loan for that. And then you get a new loan for when you put roads and everything like that on it.
Yep.
Then you get a new loan after that for vertical. So what are you seeing nowadays? Just curious, like as of March 2023, like what are you seeing as far as like, are you having an issue getting those banks to give you the loans? Because mostly from my experience, construction loans are best suited for like local banks.
On this particular property I'm thinking of, we have an arbor loan, it's much bigger.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, are they ready in place? Like, hey, is it the same loan servicer
Throughout.
throughout the
Yeah.
process? Okay.
So that's the plan. As you guys know, there's so many different loan products out there, and you
Yeah.
can accessorize the crap out of them. This is the same thing. It's like, we're going to go get this arbor loan, and there's options to just continue extending with them, but they will reassess, and then they'll give us another larger tranche of money after that new assessment. Now, here's what we're hoping for is we bring in investors, say at phase 2. So all of the riskiest part of new development is what I consider. You buy that raw land and you hope you can get it entitled and approved, because you could have local people vote you down, and then the town says, sorry, you can't build, now you're screwed. So we're bringing in investors after that. We're already entitled, approved, we're ready to cut dirt. Investors at phase 2, we write it out, we build. Phase 3 for the vertical, we hope to get assessed at a high enough rate where we just get a new loan and we don't have to raise for more money. But it's possible we might have to come in for a second tranche of money just to cover the gap that the bank requires. So we could have investors later down the road, and the initial investors will likely have higher returns just because they got in earlier.
Makes sense. And then just curious, like how long does this typical, length of a process take?
Yeah.
If you were an investor and you invest in phase 2, how long would you?
Yeah. So for the 158 homes specifically, it's a 3-year build period. We think we can probably build it in 24 months, but we're conservative.
Yeah.
Never know what happens. So 3 years. We want to be stabilized in the 3rd year. From that till year 4, we're just cash flowing and sell it after year 4. So it's a 4-year cycle and about 1.9x your money.
Cool. I'm assuming you have a plan to build like, I don't know, like 20 homes at a time. And just
Yeah.
next 20 homes. Those are
Cool.
leasing up. So you start cash flowing from that.
Yes.
Just lease up. Yeah. Versus like,
Yeah,
just
actually.
doing like a development for a multifamily, you have to wait for the entire building, or actually the entire complex basically
Yeah. To be
to
complete.
complete.
Certificate of occupancy. Yeah, that's such a great point. You're right. Because we do plan on doing 15 starts a month. So every month will be a new wave of new 15 homes. Thus, 15 finishes per month when they get finished. And yeah, we're going to occupy them immediately. So there will be some small cash flow as it grows throughout.
That's awesome. Cool.
That is cool. Thanks for
Yeah.
explaining that. Because I like all the different, how you can get in at different times, how there's so many different exit plans, how during the whole phase, right? If something goes wrong, there is automatically a B, C, D, like there's so many different options within it. It's just being patient for the capital at the end.
Yeah.
So that's
Essentially.
cool.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think build to rent is an amazing strategy. I love it. And like I've talked to Andy McMullen about this several times because there's some land that we are interested in purchasing. We've been massaging this land for like 2 years now, and it'd be a perfect location for a build to rent community. I just have to get the land locked up, but yeah.
Yeah. And for your listeners, just so you know, it's a group of syndicators that are used to doing multifamily value adds. We find a builder who's just builds homes for a living.
Yeah.
We partner up with them and we start getting built to rent.
That's super cool. Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Flint. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you about build to rent, about syndications, about, geriatric
Business
both in your in your duplexes as well, illegal businesses perhaps. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways, before we end the show, Flint, we have 4 adventurous questions that we'd like to ask you if you're ready.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So the first question we have for you is, where is one place you wish to travel to and why?
I really want to go to the Galapagos.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because I'm a huge outdoorsy person and it's just a great outdoorsy place. And one of the biggest reasons I love scuba diving, and you can go down and sit below the big school of hammerhead sharks as they
Yeah.
swim in massive schools of like 500 sharks. It would just be awesome.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like a dream
That's
come
why I
true.
was going to mention that because that's one on my bucket list as well. Like going just specifically for the hammerhead shark
Yeah.
schooling, sort of the schools that come by. But
That's
that's
cool.
really cool. We're trying to get one of our friends to like set. She's really good at like planning a bunch of big trips. We're trying to get her to plan one there.
Yeah, so if she does, we'll let you know.
We'll let you know.
Yes, absolutely.
So the second question is, what is one thing on your bucket list and how are you leveraging real estate investing to achieve it?
Swim with hammerhead sharks.
Yeah.
So I guess the whole reason I got into this is I just wanted time freedom. And that's my number one bucket list. Once I'm there, everything else blows. Like travel, I can travel, teach my kids cultures around the world. It's just enables so much.
It does. And I love that answer.
That's really cool. Thank you. So the third question we have for you is, what is one piece of advice for someone who wants to start passively investing in real estate?
Oh, I think I could have answered this one earlier. I think just start learning. It doesn't take that long. And then go get on our websites and get on the investor club so you can start learning.
Yeah.
And get on the phone. We'll give you tailored access to however you want to learn.
Yep.
Yeah. And one thing you did mention too was like you listened while you were walking your dog. Like when you listen one night, say you have to skip a night, but you listen again, or you can only do it like twice a week. The thing is that like you'll start remembering the terms and then you gain that confidence to be like, oh, I know what they're talking about this time. Right. And like that's when it
Yeah.
gets excited. But like when you never start, the confidence is not there. But if you do it once in every long while, right? So like you kind of forget what the last podcast was about, like you don't gain confidence that way either. So like even if it's a 15-minute little sprint for the day, like that's okay
Yeah.
too. Cause at least you're doing 15 minutes every day instead of right like an hour once every 2 weeks.
Right. And by the way, I think there's a lot of people that don't know this, but on podcasts or audiobooks, you can speed it up. Like I do audiobooks 2x. You have to train yourself. Do 1.25, 1.5. Get yourself up there, but you can digest so much information even faster.
Yep.
Speed it up.
Agree for sure.
So then our fourth and final question, which is my favorite, is if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
Yeah. This is like the Bill and Melinda Gates thing where they have so unlimited resources and they're just trying to help the world, right? It's the basic things I think that create conflict in the world. It's lack of education, lack of resources, lack of clean water, lack of food, and it causes and then those people who are less fortunate end up to creating conflict. What I really want to do with the time freedom, just to go back to that, is I'd love to do engineers without borders. A lot of people hear about doctors without borders. Well, there's engineers without borders.
Oh, cool.
And you can go create like wind energy systems for people in Africa just so that they have power in the remote areas, or create water filtration systems. It's giving back and enabling. Well, to get back to the human basic needs thing, just help these people who are less fortunate get things that they need to live life.
That's
Totally.
cool.
I love that too. Yay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about, this whole podcast and several times during the podcast, the end of the questions, like, just reach out, find the website. Well, Flint, would you mind providing to our Adventures family how they can reach out to you or how they can find you and get a hold of you?
Yeah. So it's bestiscapital.com, but if you can't remember that, just investwithflint.com. It'll take you right there. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find.
Perfect. And we'll make sure to have all of those in the show notes so that you can find it easily. Because I do want you to talk to Flint because he is willing to talk to you. And that's the most important part, right? Somebody is telling you, like,
Absolutely.
reach out to me. So just do it because he's not scared.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us, Flint. It's truly been a pleasure. And I learned so much from you today. Like, that was actually a lot of fun. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you guys. Yeah.
Absolutely. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.
Woo!